Hello and welcome to this tutorial. I'm going to demonstrate the first 7 rounds of my linen stitch placemat pattern. Start this project by creating a chain and chain exactly 28 times. Then we're going to work not into the first loop but the second loop from the hook just under the top loop of the chain. And we're going to work 4 single crochets into that space. So there's the first one. So 1 single crochet and then right into the same space, so just under the top loop of the chain, work another 3. So there's our second single crochet, third single crochet, and then the 4th single crochet all into that same space. That creates one of the ends of our rounded placemat. Now we're going to work again under the same space, so under the top loop of the chain, and we're going to work 1 single crochet under each loop all the way down, and we're going to do that exactly 25 times. So there I'm struggling to do the first one, so there's 1, and then number 2, single crochet number 3. So again we're just working under the top loop of the chain, and do make sure that you count these because you want to make sure that you work all the way down and that you end up with working exactly 25 single crochets, so just under those top loops. Once you get to the end, so after you've worked number 24, so we'll work the 24th one right here, actually the 25th one right here. Then the last one is the last loop. It has the slip knot attached, and you're going to work again 4 single crochets into that very last one. So here's the second one going in, and then again right into the same space you're going to work a total of 4 single crochets. And that creates the other end of our oval. So there's the 4th single crochet going into that final loop of the chain. And that space kind of gapes open. That will close up as the project proceeds, so don't worry about that. Now we're going to work down the other side of the placemat by placing another single crochet into each space, and the space we're going to use is under the remaining 2 loops of the chain. So it's a little bit difficult to find this space. It's kind of a potential space. Here you can see it right there, but if you flip the work around, then it's simply under the remaining 2 loops of the chain. So there's the first one done, and we're going to do that another 25 times. So there's 1 single crochet. Then find that space. Just make sure you're going under 2 loops, which are basically the 2 remaining loops of the original chain. So there's number 2 done. Here's number 3 going in. See if you can find that space. Don't skip any of the spaces or you won't be able to do this 25 times. And early on in the pattern, the numbers are important. So you want to make sure you do this exactly 25 times. If you end up working into a slightly different space within this little sea cucumber that you've created, it doesn't really matter that much. It just alters the appearance of the center of your placemat slightly. So there's number 7, skipping to where you've got 23 completed, and again make sure you do count them as you go. Here's number 24 going in, and number 25 should bring you to the end, so you should have run out of spaces to do that. So after number 25 we're going to start round 2, and just to have a look at what we have here on the end, these are our 4 single crochets that we worked into the same space the first time. And there they are. So the first one of those is where we're going to start the round. The round starts with a chain 1 and then single crochet into that first of 4 single crochets from the previous round. And chain 1. From now on we're always going to chain 1 between all of our single crochets. Then place another single crochet into the next single crochet, again working under the top 2 loops of each single crochet just as you normally would. Here's number 3 going in, and follow it with a chain 1, and then number 4. So that completes the semicircle end of this end of the placemat, and that's what it looks like. Now we're going to start skipping 1. So we're going to start laying the foundation for linen stitch. And here I just want to show you that there's a chain 1 space between each of these single crochets. It's hard to see, but on the next round we'll be working into that chain 1 space. So to work the straight side of the placemat, we're going to start skipping single crochets. So skip the next single crochet. So right here is this space that we just worked into. Here's the next stitch. We skip that and we work into the next single crochet. So again, under the 2 loops of the single crochet, we single crochet and chain 1, and that is a linen stitch. So now skip again and single crochet and chain 1. So that's number 2. Skip 1, single crochet, chain 1. So now we've done that a total of 3 times. And continue to do this until you've done that exactly 13 times. Here it is, I've worked number 13. Well, actually I've worked number 12, so now I'm working number 13. There it is. And so we're finished the straight side of the placemat and ready to start the other semicircle. So again, it's the same thing except we're not going to skip. So we're going to crowd the stitches a bit. So work into the next single crochet without skipping 1. Work a single crochet if you can get under the 2 loops. I'm struggling a bit here. There we go. Single crochet, chain 1, and then again without skipping a second time. Single crochet, chain 1. A third time without skipping. Single crochet, chain 1, and then a 4th time without skipping. So 1 more, single crochet and chain 1. So we've done that 4 times. We're finished the semicircle end. Now we do the straight side by skipping a stitch between each linen stitch. So skip this one, work into the next one. Single crochet, chain 1. Skip the next one, work into the next one, single crochet, chain 1. That's number 2. Do it a 3rd time and a 4th time. Skip 1, single crochet and chain 1. So do that all the way down the line. Once you have done it 12 times, so here I am doing number 12, skip 1, single crochet, chain 1. Now that brings you to the end of the round, and I want you to place a marker. I like to place it on one of the legs of the single crochet rather than the top loops. I find that in this pattern it makes it less confusing. So I just place it on the rightmost leg of the last single crochet worked. That marks the last stitch of this round. The next round is simple. You're going to linen stitch around, which means starting in the next or the first chain 1 space that you created in the previous round, you're just going to work a linen stitch, which is a single crochet followed by a chain 1. So it's into that 3rd space right there that you are going to work your first linen stitch. So work a single crochet into that followed by a chain 1 and do that all the way around until you land on the chain 1 space before the marker. Then move the marker onto the last single crochet worked and you're ready to start round 4. So here's where my more detailed instructions will begin. Round 4 starts by working 4 increases. An increase is where you simply work 2 linen stitches into the same chain 1 space. So in other words, you single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1, all into the same chain 1 space. So let's do that. So into the next chain 1 space, we single crochet, chain 1, and then into that same space, we do another single crochet, and then chain 1. Next, we are going to find the next chain 1 space, which is right after the next single crochet from the previous round, and we're going to work another increase. So 1 single crochet, chain 1, which I just did, and then into that exact same space again, work another single crochet, chain 1. So we've just done the same thing into 2 consecutive chain 1 spaces. Find the next chain 1 space, so there it is between the next 2 single crochets, and work another linen stitch or single crochet, chain 1, and then another single crochet, chain 1 into the same space. So if we want to go back and look at what we've done, there is 1 increase, it looks like a V, there's 2 and 3. So we've worked 3 increases so far, we just need to do 1 more. So find the next chain 1 space, there it is, work a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1, all into that same space. So that's how you do a linen stitch increase. It's very simple. Now for the straight side of the placemat, we don't want to work any more increases, we just want to work linen stitches into each of these chain 1 spaces. So, and we're going to do that a total of 13 times. So the next chain 1 space, we work a linen stitch. Number 1. Into the next chain 1 space, we work linen stitch number 2. And we just keep going. So that's what that notation means. LS refers to linen stitch, and the number refers to how many I want you to do. So the straight side of the placemat is completed by working a total of 13 linen stitches, and once you have done that, it's easy to lose count, so you can just easily identify where the increases are by these 2 crowded ones. Those are regular linen stitches, and so you can just count. So there's your last increase, and there's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7, 8, 9, 10, and keep going, 11, that was 10, 11, and 12 linen stitches, so that means I have 1 more to go. So that just shows you how you can go back and count if you lose count. So we do 1 more linen stitch here, single crochet, chain 1, and that's number 13. So that brings us back to the other semicircle end where we need to work more increases so that the placemat lies flat. So 4 increases, so find the next chain 1 space and work an increase. This is number 1. So single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1, all into that next chain 1 space. And then find the next chain 1 space and do the same thing again. So 2 linen stitches into the same chain 1 space. That's number 2. Do it 2 more times. So this is increase number 3. And this is increase number 4. So just make sure you don't skip any chain 1 spaces, work into each consecutive one from the round before, and you can't go wrong. So here's increase number 4, finishing up here. And if you want to just double check because you've lost count, just go back and count them. 1, 2, 3, 4 increases. And they're pretty conspicuous because of the way they form a V, and they look quite crowded. So now the second straight side of our placemat, instead of 13 linen stitches this time, we're going to do 12. So find the next chain 1 space and work a linen stitch. That's number 1 done. Here's number 2 going in. Don't forget to chain 1. Did you see how I forgot to chain 1 after that linen stitch? That's not a grievous error. Just make sure when you go back around on the next round that you work between the single crochets. Don't worry about it too much if you do that. So here, skipping ahead, I've completed number 11. I'm just going to place linen stitch number 12. I do recommend you count at this early stage just to make sure that you land in the right spot, but here's how to use the marker. After you work the last stitch of a given round, you should land in the chain 1 space before the marker. Don't cross over the marker and work another linen stitch after the marker. Stop before the marker, okay? So there's the marked stitch, there's the one after, there's the one before. You want your last stitch of each round to be worked just before the marker. And that way you will always land in the right place. I do recommend after each round taking the marker off and moving it onto the stitch that you just worked, i.e. the last stitch of the round that you just completed. And again, I put it on the legs of the single crochet just so that I don't get confused and it doesn't get in the way. So that is our round completed. We can move on to round 5, which is very simple. We're going to once again work linen stitch all the way around. So identify the next chain 1 space, work a linen stitch. The only thing to keep in mind here is that when you get to the increases that you've created, don't skip over them. Make sure that you do go right in between those 2 single crochets of the increase. It's kind of a collapsed tight space. It's more of a potential space because the stitches are crowded, but just don't skip that chain 1 space. Remember, there is a chain 1 space that you've created with each increase, so make sure you work a linen stitch into each of those. So here's the next increase. Just go right in between the legs of those 2 single crochets. That's where the chain 1 space is. And just linen stitch all the way around. So single crochet, chain 1 into each chain 1 space. That is all you need to do. If you want to count these, you can, and the pattern tells you exactly how many linen stitches you should complete. It's the same number as the total number of chain one spaces that exists in the round, but I personally don't count because I use the marker instead. And a reminder of how to use the marker: once you've linen stitched all the way around, the last stitch of the round should be entered into the chain one space before the marker. I can't stress that enough. If you don't do that properly, all your counts will be off and you'll find this pattern very frustrating. And again, at the end of round 5, I do recommend taking the marker off, and you'll notice that the marker moves up diagonally towards the right as you move through the rounds. That's just the nature of working in a spiral. So do move that marker up onto the last stitch of the round, and you can't go wrong. So moving on to round 6, it starts by working 2 linen stitches, and then this instruction looks complicated, but it isn't. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to work a total of 4 increases, and each of them is going to have 1 regular linen stitch in between. Okay, so start with 2 regular linen stitches and just start in the next chain one space. So that's the first one. And there's number 2. So 2 regular linen stitches. Then you're going to start working 4 increases, and each one is going to have a regular linen stitch in between. So there's the first increase, so 2 linen stitches into that same chain one space. Then in the next chain one space, just work a regular linen stitch this time. As we go through the rounds, the increases are going to become increasingly spaced out, basically. So there's a linen stitch. Now we're going to work our second increase, so 2 linen stitches into this next chain one space. Follow that with a regular linen stitch. Then work your third increase of this semicircle end. So 2 linen stitches in that same space, and then finally another linen stitch. So just 1. And then if you get confused, you can't remember how many you've done, you can always go back and count. That's where we started. That's the last stitch of the previous round. Here is number 1 and 2 of our regular linen stitches that we started with. There's our first increase, linen stitch, increase, linen stitch, and increase. So we've done 3 increases and a linen stitch, so we have to do 1 more increase. And these should be roughly centered around the semicircle end of your placemat. Don't worry if it doesn't seem like they're perfect. Sometimes it's difficult with the pattern creation to kind of make them perfectly centered around each semicircle end, but it does work out in the wash. And so you can go through and count your 4 increases and see that each one is separated by 1 regular linen stitch. So that's your first semicircle end of round 6. Now we're going to work the straight side of the placemat by working 13 regular linen stitches. If you lose count, go back and identify where the last increase was that you worked for the semicircle, and then count the single linen stitches that you worked after that. And so you should be able to figure out exactly where you are in the pattern by doing that. So after those 13 linen stitches, it's time to start the other semicircle end, which is the same again. You're going to do 4 increases, each of them separated by 1 regular linen stitch. So here's my first increase going in, it's finished. Then work a linen stitch into the next chain one space, then another increase. This is increase number 2. Linen stitch. Increase number 3. Linen stitch. And finally, increase number 4. So 2 linen stitches into the same space, and that is the end of our semicircle. And again, you can always go back and count. Here's our straight edge. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4 increases, each of them separated by 1 regular linen stitch. So hopefully you can identify that in your work. It really helps to be able to go back and look at what you have and count. This round is completed by working another 13 linen stitches, and if you count them correctly and you've done everything right, you should land so that the 13th is placed in the space before the marker. So here I am, I'm just finishing up number 12, and this is 13 going in, and it does land in the chain 1 space before the marker. Once again, don't cross over the marker, finish before the marker, and then move the marker up and to the right onto the stitch that you just completed. And that marks the last stitch of the round. So that is pretty much all you need to know for this pattern. Round number 7, I should say, is another one where you work linen stitch around, and as you go you're going to be doing that more and more. Eventually you'll be able to work 2 rounds in a row where you're just working linen stitch around. Don't forget to make use of those chain 1 spaces that you've created with the increases. So right here, don't skip over that. Stick the hook in between those 2 single crochets and make use of that chain 1 space, even though it is collapsed and crowded. But that's pretty much all you need to remember, and just work 1 linen stitch into each chain 1 space around. And again, I don't count on these rounds, I just work all the way around until I get to the chain 1 space before the marker. Then I move the marker up onto the stitch that I just worked. That's the last stitch of the round, and it again works such that the marker moves diagonally up and to the right. That's just how it works when you work in a spiral, and that way you don't have to count on these rounds. It's very simple. And this is round 8. It's just more of the same. You're going to work 2 linen stitches, then you're going to work 4 increases. This time each increase is going to be separated by 2 regular linen stitches instead of 1. So like I said, as you progress, the increases are farther apart, and the straight sides of the placemat this time are 15 linen stitches, followed by another semicircle end with the increases spaced around, and then the other straight side is this time 12 linen stitches. So those numbers change a little bit on each round. They were worked out through trial and error. I hope that you are successful with this pattern. I think it's so simple and beautiful. Good luck and thank you.